The crystal chandelier above Maria's head swayed, as Julian's voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. "She's a fraud. This woman scrubs toilets for a living." The projection screen behind her flickered to life, displaying a photo of Maria on her hands and knees, cleaning Arthur's marble floors. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward her. The orchestra stopped mid-note. Arthur's face went pale, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips. Maria stood perfectly still in her midnight blue gown, the fabric shimmering under the harsh spotlight someone had swung in her direction. Her hands, adorned with borrowed diamonds, didn't tremble. She looked directly at Julian, then at Arthur, and finally at the elderly Chairman Chen who sat at the head table with his wife. Her lips parted as if to speak, but before a single word could escape. 48 hours earlier, Maria had been invisible. She moved through Arthur Castellano's penthouse like a ghost, her cleaning cart wheels silent on the imported Italian marble. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, but Maria kept her eyes down, focused on the baseboards that cost more than her annual salary. She learned early that rich people preferred their help to be scenery, background noise to their important lives. "The merger talks are collapsing, Arthur." The voice of Marcus, Arthur's chief advisor, drifted from the study. "The Chens are traditional. They won't sign with a playboy bachelor. They need to see stability, family values." Maria paused her dusting, her hand hovering over a first-edition Kant that Arthur probably never read. She noticed the spine was uncracked, the pages pristine. A $15,000 decoration. "Then I'll bring someone to the Unity Gala." Arthur's voice carried irritation. "Problem solved. Your last 3 dates sold stories to tabloids. We need someone controllable." Maria moved to the next room, but Arthur's problem followed her thoughts. She understood family pressure, the weight of expectations. Her daughter Sophia's tuition payment loomed like a storm cloud, due in 72 hours. The university didn't care that Maria held a PhD in economics from Universidad Nacional. They only saw the check that needed to clear. "Excuse me." Maria jumped, nearly dropping her microfiber cloth. Arthur stood in the doorway of his study, actually looking at her. In 3 months of cleaning his home, he'd never once made eye contact. "Yes, Mr. Castellano." "You read?" He nodded toward the Kant. "I've noticed. Last week it was Foucault, today it's philosophy." Maria's heart hammered. She'd been careless, letting her real self show. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't touch your books, I was just dusting." "What's your name?" "Maria Sandoval, sir." Arthur stepped closer, his designer suit probably worth more than her car. He studied her face like she was an equation he was trying to solve. "How would you like to make $5,000, Maria Sandoval?" The number hit her like cold water. Sophia's tuition was $4,500. Doing what? "Be my date to the Unity Gala, Saturday night, 6 hours of your time." Maria set down her cleaning supplies carefully, buying time to think. "You want to pay your housekeeper to pretend to be your girlfriend." "I need someone who won't sell me out to the press. Someone who needs the money enough to keep her mouth shut." His bluntness was almost refreshing. "You'd wear a nice dress, smile, make small talk. That's it." "No." The word came out before Maria could stop it. Arthur blinked. "No. I'm not a prop, Mr. Castellano. I clean your home, but I'm not for sale." She picked up her cart, ready to walk away from $5,000 and probably her job. "Wait." Something in his voice had changed, softened. "You're right. That was insulting. I'm sorry." He ran a hand through his dark hair, looking suddenly younger than his 32 years. "I'm terrible at this. At people. I spend all day with sycophants who tell me what I want to hear. You're the first person in months to tell me no." Maria hesitated. "Why me? You could hire an actual escort, someone trained for this." "Because you read Kant while you dust. Because you're invisible to everyone else, but I have a feeling you see everything." He met her eyes, and because I think you understand what it's like to be underestimated." The words landed somewhere deep in Maria's chest, in the place where her old life lived. Dean of Economics, published researcher, a woman who'd lectured to packed auditoriums before her country's political coup had turned her world to ash. "My daughter's tuition is due Monday," Maria heard herself say. $4,500. "I'll give you 6,000, and you choose your own dress." "I choose everything. How I dress, what I say, how I act. I'm not your puppet." Arthur smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually stern face. "Deal." The next day, Maria stood in the most expensive boutique she'd ever entered, feeling the sales associates' judgmental stares on her department store clothes. Arthur had given her his credit card and left her alone, a gesture of trust that surprised her. "Can I help you?" The question dripped with condescension. "I need a gown for the Unity Gala." Maria kept her voice steady. The woman's eyebrows rose. "The Unity Gala, that's a $12,000 per plate event." "I'm aware. I'll take that midnight blue one in the window, size 6. 2 hours later, Arthur arrived at the boutique's private fitting room to find Maria in the blue gown, looking at herself in the three-way mirror like she'd found a piece of her old life. The dress hugged her curves before flowing to the floor like water, the back cut low enough to be daring without crossing into inappropriate. "You look," Arthur stopped, apparently lost for words. "Like I belong," Maria finished. "Good, because I'm going to need you to stop starring like that at the actual event, or everyone will know this is fake." Over the next 24 hours, Arthur insisted on coaching sessions that made Maria want to laugh and cry simultaneously. He tried to teach her which fork to use, how to make small talk with oligarchs, the proper way to hold a wine glass. "The champagne flute should be held by the stem," he lectured, demonstrating, "never by the bowl." Maria watched him, then gently took the glass from his hand and repositioned his fingers. "You're holding it wrong. That's how you'd hold a wine glass. Champagne flutes need a lighter touch, or you warm the champagne with your palm." Arthur stared at her. "How do you know that?" "I've washed a lot of glasses, Arthur." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. She'd also hosted dinner parties for diplomats and academic colleagues in another lifetime. "Say something in French," he demanded suddenly. "Pourquoi?" "Because the Chens are bringing the French ambassador. I need to know if you can handle yourself." Maria switched languages effortlessly. "Je parle couramment français ainsi que l'espagnol, l'anglais et le mandarin. Voulez-vous que je continue?" Arthur's mouth fell open. "You speak Mandarin?" "Among other things." Maria handed back the champagne flute. "Stop trying to change me into someone I'm not. You hired me because I'm not like the women in your world. Trust that instinct." Saturday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Maria's hands shook as she applied her makeup in Arthur's guest bathroom, the mirror reflecting a woman she'd almost forgotten existed. Professional, polished, powerful. The doorbell rang. Arthur's stylist had arrived with jewelry, real diamonds on loan from a collection worth more than small countries. As the woman fastened a necklace around Maria's throat, she caught Arthur's reflection in the mirror. He'd gone completely still, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "We should go," he said quietly. "The car is waiting." The drive to the gala took 20 minutes through downtown traffic. Arthur sat rigid beside her, radiating nervous energy. Maria found herself talking to fill the silence. "Tell me about Chairman Chen. What does he value?" "Family, legacy, tradition." Arthur loosened his bow tie slightly. "His grandfather started their company with nothing. He respects people who have built something real." "Then tell him the truth about your company, not the stock prices or the market share. Tell him why you do what you do." Arthur looked at her sharply. "When did you become a business consultant?" "I'm a good observer, remember. You talk about your technology like it's a chore. But last week, I saw you on a video call with your development team, explaining how your new software could help rural schools in developing countries. Your whole face changed. That's the Arthur that Chairman Chen needs to meet. The limousine pulled up to the grand ballroom entrance. Paparazzi lined the red carpet like hungry wolves, cameras flashing in a blinding strobe. Maria's stomach clenched. This was the moment she could be exposed, recognized, destroyed. Arthur must have sensed her panic because he leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "We can leave right now, just say the word." Maria thought of Sophia, of the tuition payment, of the woman she used to be who never ran from a challenge. "I didn't choose this dress to hide in the car." His laugh was surprised and genuine. "Okay then, let's give them a show." The cameras went insane when Maria stepped out of the limousine. She moved like she'd been doing this her entire life, because in some ways she had. Academic conferences, university galas, political fundraisers in her old country. She knew how to command a room. Arthur offered his arm and she took it, leaning in to whisper something that made him laugh for the photographers. "What did you just say?" he murmured as they walked. "I told you that your tie is crooked, and you have the posture of a nervous teenager." "I thought we were supposed to be convincing." "We're supposed to be real." Maria smiled up at him. "Real couples tease each other." Inside the ballroom, crystal and gold transformed the space into something from a fairy tale. Maria recognized the architectural firm that had designed it, had once written a paper on the economic impact of luxury event spaces. She caught herself before mentioning it, remembering that housekeepers weren't supposed to know these things. Arthur, a woman in red, descended on them, all air kisses and calculating eyes. "And who is this mysterious creature?" "Vivian, this is Maria." "Maria, Vivian runs the city's largest PR firm." Vivian's gaze raked over Maria like she was livestock at auction. "Charmed. And what do you do, Maria?" This was the test. Maria could feel Arthur tense beside her, waiting to see if she'd blow their cover. She smiled serenely. "I'm in transitional consulting, helping people find their value in unexpected places." It wasn't a lie. She did help Arthur find clean floors and organized shelves every week. Vivian looked puzzled but nodded, already scanning the room for more important prey. "Lovely. Do excuse me, I see the mayor has arrived." As the evening progressed, Maria found herself falling into familiar rhythms. She made small talk with donors, laughed at appropriate moments, and guided Arthur through social pitfalls with subtle touches and whispered warnings. Across the room, she caught a man watching them with undisguised hostility. Julian Mercer, Arthur's primary business rival, looked like he wanted to set something on fire. "He knows," Maria whispered. "Knows what?" "That this isn't real. He's studying us too carefully." Arthur's jaw tightened. "Julian's been trying to sabotage this merger for months. If he exposes you." "Then we make sure he can't." Maria squeezed his hand. "Trust me." Dinner was announced, and they were seated at the head table with Chairman Chen, his wife May, and several other VIPs. The elderly chairman had kind eyes but carried himself with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. When Arthur introduced Maria, Chen nodded politely but didn't really see her. Another piece of decorative furniture in Arthur's manufactured life. The first course arrived, a delicate soup that Maria recognized from her studies of French cuisine. Conversation flowed in English, stilted and formal, until the chairman's translator whispered an apology into his ear. "I'm terribly sorry," the translator announced to the table. "My mother has fallen ill. I must leave immediately." Chairman Chen spoke in Mandarin to his wife, clearly frustrated. The room's energy shifted, becoming awkward and tense. This dinner was supposed to seal the merger, but without communication, the entire evening would collapse. Maria set down her soup spoon. "Nai hao chen juxi, ruguo ninzio wo ki bangjufani." Every head at the table swiveled toward her. Chairman Chen's eyes widened in shock. Even his wife looked stunned. "You speak Mandarin?" Chen asked in his native tongue, his accent placing him from the Jiangsu province. "I do," Maria replied in flawless Mandarin. "I also couldn't help but notice your wife's bracelet. That's Qing dynasty craftsmanship, isn't it? The detail work suggests it's from the late 1800s. Mei Chen gasped, holding up her wrist to examine the jade bracelet. She responded in rapid Mandarin, and suddenly Maria was deep in conversation with both Chens, discussing Chinese art history, the economic development of Jiangsu province, and the philosophical differences between Confucian and Western business ethics. Arthur sat frozen, watching Maria transform before his eyes. She wasn't just translating. She was engaging the Chens in intellectual discourse that had them leaning forward in their seats, animated and excited. Other conversations at nearby tables had stopped, people turning to witness whatever was happening at the head table. "How do you know about the regional economic policies of Jiangsu?" Chen asked, switching to English so others could follow. Maria hesitated. This was the moment. She could deflect, stay safe in her invisible identity, or she could step back into the light she'd been forced to leave behind. "Before I came to this country, I was the Dean of Economics at Universidad Nacional in my homeland. I published extensively on emerging market development and comparative economic systems. Your company's growth model was actually a case study in one of my papers." The table went completely silent. Chen stared at her, then at Arthur, then back at her. "You're Dr. Maria Sandoval. I read your work on sustainable development in transitional economies. It was brilliant." "You've read my work." Maria's voice cracked slightly. She thought that part of her life was dead and buried. "I assigned it to my graduate students when I taught at Beijing University." Chen's whole demeanor had changed, treating Maria now as an equal, an intellectual peer. "But I thought you were in South America. What brings you here?" "Political asylum. The coup 2 years ago made it unsafe for academics who'd criticized the regime. I came here with my daughter and $500. Maria's hands were steady on the table, no longer trying to hide. "I've been working as a housekeeper while I rebuild." The words hung in the air like a confession. Arthur looked at her with something close to awe. Mei Chen reached across the table to grasp Maria's hand, saying something in Mandarin about courage and resilience. That's when Julian struck. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice boomed across the ballroom as he stood at his table, holding a remote control. "I think we all deserve to know the truth about Arthur Castellano's mystery date." The projection screen at the front of the room flickered to life. There was Maria, wearing her housekeeping uniform, on her hands and knees scrubbing Arthur's floors. Another photo showed her emptying his trash. Another showed her cleaning his windows. "This woman," Julian announced triumphantly, "is Arthur's housekeeper. He's paying her to pretend to be his girlfriend to fool all of you into thinking he's stable enough for business." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, the sounds of chairs scraping as people stood for a better view. Maria felt Arthur move to stand to defend her, but she touched his arm gently. "Let me," she whispered. Maria rose slowly, the blue dress catching the light as she stood to her full height. She looked at Julian with the same expression she'd once used for lazy students who hadn't done their readings. "You're right," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. "Those photos show me working as a housekeeper. I do clean Arthur's home. I scrub his floors and wash his dishes and organize his books." Julian smirked, thinking he'd won. The crowd murmured, scandalized. Maria continued, "I also hold a PhD in economics. I speak 5 languages fluently. I've published in the Journal of Economic Perspectives and the Quarterly Journal of Economics. I've advised 3 governments on monetary policy." Her voice strengthened with each word, reclaiming her identity. "When my country fell to fascists, I fled with my daughter and nothing else. No money, no connections, no way to transfer my credentials immediately." She walked forward, away from the head table, commanding the room's attention. "So yes, I clean houses to keep my daughter fed and safe while I work on getting my professional certifications recognized here. I'm not ashamed of that work. I'm proud of it. I'm proud that I didn't give up, that I didn't let losing everything make me less than who I am." Maria turned to face Julian directly. "You wanted to humiliate me by showing I do honest work. The only thing you've exposed is your own elitism. I am not a fraud, Julian. I'm a survivor. I'm a mother. I'm a scholar. And I'm someone who understands that a person's value isn't determined by their job title or their bank account." She looked at Arthur then, her voice softening. "Arthur offered me money to be here tonight, yes. But I'm not here because he paid me. I'm here because in the few conversations we've had, he's shown me more respect and genuine interest than most people in this room have shown their staff in their entire lives. He sees people, really sees them. That's rare. That's valuable." Chairman Chen stood abruptly. His wife stood with him. For a moment, Maria thought they were leaving in disgust, that she destroyed Arthur's merger and her own future in one dramatic speech. Then Chen began to applaud. His wife joined him. Then Arthur, standing and clapping with tears in his eyes. One by one, the entire ballroom rose in a standing ovation that drowned out Julian's sputtering protests. Chen walked to Maria, speaking in Mandarin. "Dr. Sandoval, my company is starting a new foundation focused on sustainable development in emerging markets. We need someone to direct it, someone who understands both the economics and the human cost of transition. Would you consider joining us?" Maria's mind reeled. I would be honored, Chairman Chen, but I'm still working on my credential transfers. I have lawyers who specialize in exactly that. Consider it done." Chen smiled warmly. "As for the merger, Arthur, I'm signing. Any man wise enough to see Dr. Sandoval's true value is someone I want as a partner." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Well-wishers approached Maria, academics who recognized her name, business leaders who wanted to discuss her research. Julian slunk away somewhere after the 15th person congratulated Maria on her speech. Arthur stayed close, but quiet, letting her shine. Finally, as the gala wound down and guests began to leave, Arthur and Maria found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the ballroom. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "Your payment, $6,000 as agreed." Maria took the envelope, felt its weight, then carefully tore it in half. "What are you doing?" Arthur asked, shocked. "I didn't finish the night because you paid me." Maria let the pieces flutter to the floor. "I finished it because I wanted to. Because somewhere between your terrible etiquette lessons and your complete faith that I could handle myself tonight, this stopped being a transaction." Arthur stepped closer, his voice low and intense. "I offered you money because I didn't know how else to ask for help. I've spent so long in a world where everything is bought and sold that I forgot some things can't be purchased." "Like what?" "Like respect, like genuine connection, like whatever this is between us." He gestured helplessly at the space between them. "I don't want this to end tonight, Maria. Not as employer and employee, not as a business arrangement. I want to take you to dinner, a real date where we both choose to be there." Maria smiled, feeling lighter than she had in 2 years. "I'd like that, but fair warning, I'm going to be very busy with my new job directing an international foundation." "I'm counting on it. Successful, brilliant women are my type," Arthur grinned. "Though I should probably hire a new housekeeper." "Definitely. I'm terrible at cleaning anyway. I always get distracted reading the books I'm supposed to be dusting." They laughed together, the sound genuine and free. Around them, the ballroom staff began breaking down tables and dimming lights. The fairy tale was ending, but something real was beginning. "Can I drive you home?" Arthur asked. "I'd like that." As they walked toward the exit, Maria caught their reflection in one of the ballroom's massive mirrors. The woman looking back at her wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was Dr. Maria Sandoval, housekeeper, mother, scholar, survivor, and whatever she chose to be next. Outside, the city lights sparkled against the night sky. Arthur helped her into the limousine, and Maria realized this was the first time in 2 years she'd felt like herself again. Not because of the dress or the gala or even the job offer, but because someone had looked past the surface and seen her true value. Sometimes the most precious things in life come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. And sometimes, the person who changes your life is the one you almost missed because you weren't really looking. If Maria's story moved you, if you've ever felt invisible or underestimated, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Share in the comments below about a time someone saw your true value when others overlooked you. Your story matters, just like Maria's does. Because everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves to be valued. And everyone has the right to reclaim who they truly are, no matter what circumstances tried to take that away.